Hey guys, so this is Miss Figueroa. I'm going to be teaching y'all literal equations. So we've started on literal equations on Friday, and so this is just an extension of what you've seen. So a formula, jumping straight in, a formula is an equation that states a rule for a relationship among quantities. So quantities are just numbers, just anything that we can measure. And then a formula is a type of literal equation. A literal equation is an equation with two or more variables. To solve for one of the variables, we're going to use inverse operations. So this is the same way we solve our regular equations. So in the formula d equals RT, d is isolated. You can rearrange a formula to isolate any variable by using inverse operations. This is called solving. Dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So this is going to be real important for solving in general, but especially for these literal equations. So when we're solving for a variable, we're going to locate the variable that we are asked to solve for. We're going to notice the operations on the variable and the order in which they are applied. Then we're going to use inverse operations in order to undo and solve for that variable. So here, let's look at our regular equations versus our literal equations. So here on the left, regular equation, we would have x minus 7 is equal to 8, and we're solving for x. So I know that I want to get this x isolated. So I need to get rid of that 7 by undoing that operation. So then I would have x still on the left equals 8 plus 7, 15, and x would equal 15. We use those same operations on our literal equations. So here we have all letters on the right, and we're still solving for x. So I still want to get this x by itself. So I'm going to isolate it by doing inverse operations. So here, minus b plus b, that's going to cancel out. X will equal, and a plus b, we don't know if we can combine those because they're different letters. So we cannot say AB. That's multiplication. So the operation between them is addition, so we keep it that way. So my variable x is equal to the two variables a plus b. So then let's look at the next one. For the regular equation, we're solving for x. I want to get this x by itself. That's my goal. So I see the operation between 4 and x is multiplication. I'm going to use inverse operations, so I'm doing the opposite. And dividing, those two will cancel out. I'm left with x on the left, and negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. Now my x has been isolated, it's by itself. That's my final answer. So then for the literal equation side, I'm solving for k. That's my goal, to get this k by itself. So I'm going to divide by negative 3 since it's multiplying. These two cancel. I have k on one side equal to, and I cannot combine a variable with a number and say that I'm done. I can't say this is negative 3m or this is negative 3 because m is 1. I don't know what m is. So I just have to keep it with that variable there and say that k equals negative m over 3. Or I could write it as k equals negative 1/3 m. It doesn't matter. So then on this one that says you try, we are going to do it together. So it says a plus b plus c equals 180, and I'm solving for b. So my goal is to get this b by itself. So I need to isolate it. I'm going to get rid of this c first. So I have a plus b, a plus b, I wrote them too close, on this left side is equal to, and I'm just going to write them as is since one is a variable, so 180 minus c. I want to get this b by itself, and it's not, so I'm going to subtract that a. So remember, when something's in the front and I can't see the operation, I can't see the sign, it is a plus, and there is an operation between them. We're adding them, so I'm going to subtract it. Leaves me with b equals 180 minus c minus a. And now that b is by itself, I'm done. So once I can say b is completely alone, that's my goal, that's my answer. So now let's move on to the next page. We have a regular equation, 2x minus 5 is equal to 11, and we're solving it for x. So I want to get this x by itself. Now we have more than one step. So I'm going to get rid of that constant first. Those two will cancel out. Then 2x is equal to 11 plus 5 gives me 16. 2 and x, the operation between them is multiplication, so I have to undo that. I'm going to do the opposite. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I have 1x. 16 divided by 2 is 8. X is completely alone, so that is my final answer. X equals 8. Then on this next one, we're solving for b. So I want this b by itself. So first thing I'm going to do, looking at the regular equation side, I know that I have to get rid of a constant first. So negative 9 plus 9 gives me 0. So I have 2b is equal to d plus 9. We're not going to combine a variable and a number. And then looking at my regular side, I know that I have to divide out that coefficient next. So these two will cancel, and I get that b equals, we can write this two different ways. We can say d plus 9 all over 2, or we can say b equals d over 2 and separate them, plus 9 over 2. So either one is correct if you want to separate them or if you want to keep them together, it does not matter. Now we have one with a lot going on. So we have 1/2 of 4x is equal to 20, and again we're solving for x. So I want to get this x by itself. 1/2 times 4 is the same thing as saying what's half of 4. So I'm dividing 4 by 2, so that gives me 2. So 2x equals 20. Then I'm going to get rid of that coefficient by dividing it out. X equals 20 divided by 2 is 10. Then on the other side, for the literal equation, we're solving for g. So on the left side, I combined the first two that we're multiplying together first. So I can combine these and say that that's AE. So AE is now together, and I want to get G by itself. So I'm going to divide by AE. This only works because they're multiplying. So E cancels, A cancels. Now I'm left with G equals 10 divided by AE. So when there's more than one piece that is multiplying, so that's the key, it's got to be multiplying, then we can do them both at the same time. If it's not multiplication, don't attempt to do them at the same time because you might mess up your order. Now here we've got that we're solving for x again. We're on the regular side. So x over negative 8 is the same thing as saying negative 1/8 times x. These are the same. So in order to get rid of a divided by negative 8, I'm going to do the opposite and multiply by negative 8. So I'm going to take x over negative 8 and multiply by negative 8. Whatever I do on the left, I have to do on the right. So negative 8 times 11. That gets my denominator to be canceled out. So x equals negative 8 times 11 is negative 88. Once x is completely by itself, that is my final answer. So now on the literal equation side, we're solving for y. This is the piece that I want by itself. In order to get rid of a divided by 3, I have to multiply by 3. So y over 3 multiplied by 3 is equal to 3 times h. So everything gets multiplied by 3. Multiplied by 3 divided by 3, they cancel each other out. So y equals 3 times h is just 3h. We don't combine them. Y is isolated, so that is my final answer. So then this next page that says literal equations at the top, this is your homework for Monday. Oops. So make sure that you turn in your notes and that you turn in the homework as well on Canvas. And thank you guys for tuning in.